Hello guys, thanks a lot for joining us today. We are here with amazing creative person, designer, typographer, hand letterer, Ian Barnard. Do I pronounce your surname well?
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, so welcome everyone, welcome Ian. I have lots of questions for you because I love your work. I love typography in general, and you have certainly a very different approach to it, and I love following you on Instagram. So I prepare lots of questions, but you guys who are listening to us, I know you're fans of Ian's work, so do prepare your questions and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible during this 30-minute live interview. So my first question to you, Ian, you recently talked about finding your creative spark. And as I know, you had your own journey to kind of find your own creative spark that is typography. You did video editing before and you kind of tried different career paths. Can you tell a bit more about that? And also, how do you know that this is the thing you want to do? What are the signs that this area of design or something that you just tried is what you will be doing for the rest of your life?
So to start with the first bit, I knew I wanted to be in the creative sector because I didn't fit into any of the other subjects at school. Nothing really gelled for me, and I just found it really difficult. And so this was something that I didn't really have to put too much thought into. So that was the thing I was going to pursue, but I didn't really know it was something in the creative industry, and that's so big that I went off to college and did like a multimedia course covering everything from photography, like you say, video, light and sound, technical drawing, graphic design, just all the range, because I was just trying to experiment because I just didn't know. And then I realized that my skill set was, out of all of them, graphic design was my main thing that I sort of felt I was my natural ability sort of sprung out of that. So I went off and did 2 years doing a graphic design and illustration course. Did that, got a job at a design agency in printers, spent 7 years there, spent another 7 years part-time working for a magazine. And then, I went freelance, and I was still doing the same I was still doing a variety of graphic design projects. I started doing web design as well. And I thought I sort of enjoyed this stuff, but it wasn't until I started doing, just one day, it was the day my son was born, I thought I really wanted to do a craft, something off the computer, because my eyes were just getting really tired.
Oh, yeah.
I think we all feel that after a while, and I just wanted to do something a bit more hands-on, a bit more old school, and so I just taught myself calligraphy one day from a dummy's guide, and I was like, this is amazing. It was just like something that sort of a new found well of creativity sort of sprung up, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And
do you think it was because you learned it yourself, so you kind of, there was a magical feeling that you can do something not going to university, just kind of you achieved it yourself? Or do you think there was something different about the whole craft?
I think it was something different because I've taught myself, like actually most of the stuff I've done has been sort of self-taught. So when I had quiet periods at my employed work, I would spend it in learning. That's where I learned about web design. So I would teach myself how to use the programs, how to, I got a similar book on how to learn how to code websites. And so I'd done like self-initiated learning before. I think for me, I don't know, it was just, I could really express myself through this. And it was more of an art form, you know, because graphic design is sort of a mixture of art and design, whereas this is sort of, I suppose, traditional calligraphy is more of an art form in itself. And also just how people reacted to it was another thing. They were just like, oh, this is really beautiful. And I've never had someone say it about my work, this is really beautiful. So I think it was, you know, and I was like, oh, hang on a minute, this is, you know, because sometimes when you're learning, you just don't see that. And I really enjoyed doing it. Getting the feedback was really good as well, and yeah, just I think because I was doing something that because a thing I came up with graphic designers was people kept saying, you know, oh, I've got a computer, I can be a graphic designer, and so it sort of distilled how like some of the skills I'd learned. It just didn't seem to. I don't think people saw it in that way. The value of design. Whereas,
so I think, like, to summarize the three things that I got from what you were just saying. So first is the importance of expressing yourself through whatever you're doing. So you need to feel that the fact that you can express yourself. Second, you need to get some positive feedback that will encourage you to do that. So it's definitely important to have
that does really help.
Someone that really likes what you're doing at the moment. And the third is the fact that differentiates you from everyone else in the world. So you have some sort of special abilities that other people see as special and none of them can do. So I think these three things will make you pick the thing that you want to do if you can find the combination of the three.
Yeah, and I think something that I found has opened me to bigger, more opportunities is really niching down on one thing and being really good at that. I thought the way to success was to be a jack of all trades and to be able to do web design or able to be branding, logo design, brochures, whatever it may be. But that just kept me with local work. And as soon as I narrowed down my field of expertise, it meant that it opened up to a bigger, you know, I was doing like big brands with the stuff, some of the stuff I was doing, because a design agency would, you know, they've got designers at a design agency, but they haven't got anyone who specialises in, you know, for instance, maybe illustration. Like for me, it was lettering, calligraphy, and so they can then, you know, reach out to you and use your work. Whereas a general designer, they don't need that general skill. But it doesn't apply to all things. But for me, I found that being, you know, good at you know, I think what happens is if you're just a general good designer, you've got lots of other people you're in competition with. But every time, like say, okay, I'm going to focus on web design, that narrows down your competition, narrow it down even more into, I really want to do web design for, you know, it might be for gardening centres, for instance. That niches it down even more. So there's less competition the further narrow you down.
Advice. That's brilliant.
So,
talking about the commercial part, because you started the conversation of what made sense commercially. So how was your journey with the whole typography? Because I feel like there are so many people that are passionate about the craft and they want to do that, but they kind of can't figure out, will I be able to make enough money to support myself or my family just by doing this very small thing? So what was the journey for you? Could you find clients straight away, or was it still kind of a bit of a process?
I think like with everything that people are doing at the moment, even though everything's instant with like internet, you know, like Amazon and stuff like that, it still took me like a year and a half before I got like my main project for lettering, because I had to, you know, build up a sort of small audience. And part of the audience was people who worked for design agencies, especially in like London. And so, and also you need to build up a body of work. So they can't, you know, they're not going to look at one piece of work you've done and just say, okay, I hire that person. They need to see that you're consistent, or you've got a certain style that are after. And it also, I'm very blessed because I didn't pursue this at the beginning as something that I was going to turn into like my career. It was just, I was loving doing it, and I was using Instagram as a reference tool so I could see that I was getting better. And yeah, it's that sort of longevity of having to post. You know, if you're starting today, it will take you a couple of years, and I think that's quite hard for a lot of people to hear. But if you can put in that, you know, 2 years of hard graft, you will start to benefit from people wanting to use your work and get in contact with you and collaborate with you. So that's what I found in my experience.
But have you ever felt like you are getting bored of this field? Because again, before you were doing so many different things and suddenly you can do only one thing. Have you ever felt like maybe I should start doing something else, or maybe I should start incorporating illustration, or I don't know, diversifying?
There are days where I just say, oh, I don't want to draw at all, and I just do something else. But I think something that has helped me and my my Instagram grow is that I look at I'm quite self-aware of my personality, and my personality, I can't stick with one thing and just keep doing it all over and over again. So, I love being in this lettering typographical sphere, but I have to experiment with different styles. So if you look through my feed, you'll see that I just keep changing. Like it might be chalkboard one time, it might be like digital lettering, it might be the iPad, it might be using Crayola markers. I sort of go through stages. I try something for a while, and then I get bored, and then I have to try something else. And so for me, it's staying within that, I suppose, type area, but just, maybe one day it's making a font, maybe it's one day, like next month I've got my first lettering mural that I'm going to be doing. So
Can you say what client is it for?
Yeah, it's for a co-working space in Eastbourne called Cohab. And so, so I'll be filming it and showing the process. So I can use it on my YouTube channel. And so I just that's something I want to try, see if I enjoy it, see if I want to do some more. I'm thankful for them because they let me have my first go there. So I'm quite messy, so I hope it works out.
Oh, good luck with that.
But I think for me, it's just constantly experimenting with stuff and not being worried if it looks rubbish or because I use Pinterest a lot. That's where I find a lot of inspiration. And I see a style, I try it, see if it works with what I'm doing, see if I can actually get on with that style, and then maybe incorporate it in my work. Otherwise, I just sort of try and let it go. So, that's the sort of way I work.
Yeah, I can see how you see typography as lots of different things that you can do with it. So it's not narrow for you at all. It's the whole world of it. But you mentioned a couple of very interesting things of the importance of growing your Instagram and kind of the fact that you're represented on YouTube and Instagram, and you have your own website as well. And as a one-person company, it's a lot of work to do, to edit your videos, to make sure that you have things for Instagram and you constantly engage with people. How did you find that process? And again, are there any tips for people who really good at that craft at the moment, but they really struggle with getting their work out there and getting the following and getting people engaged with them?
Something that I prioritized at the beginning, or as I saw that I was starting to grow, is that over all my work, I prioritize posting to any of my social media channels. And it was mainly at the beginning Instagram, but, sort of Twitter and Facebook as well. And so that was my priority of the day over, a web design I had to do or something like that. Because for some reason I could see the importance of it and I enjoyed doing it. And it was, when you've got something boring to do, that you always do the stuff that's really interesting. And so that was my priority, and that helped me grow because I was there every day. Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
No, it's just how to make sure that people find time. So I think prioritization, definitely understanding the power of social media is definitely good advice. But also the fact that you are not just on Instagram, you're also on YouTube and other platforms. So how do you find time for everything and for different type of content?
I don't sometimes, like last week. I try. My aim for this year was to post once a week to YouTube. YouTube takes 10 times longer than everything else because I've got to talk to camera, I've got to do the other bits, edit it, and it can take a day just to do one video, one short video. And last week I just didn't get time, and the first week into the year I failed that. every week for 52 years I'd already failed it. So sometimes I just don't find time. It's just sometimes it's easier if you like give yourself a little time frame. So give yourself like half an hour to do whatever and post it at the end of that. That can, you know, I know everyone has different amounts of time. I just fitted it in with everything else. I do procrastinate a lot, so I probably have more time than I could actually spend on it. But I think, yeah, I know that people are really busy, so just give yourself a small portion of time to make sure that it's better to post regularly, and that's what all the social platforms algorithms like bent to, is you posting regularly, even if it's just, people love seeing the process, so showing your sketches, showing your ideas behind the work, but just being a regular face that is popping up daily. That's what people really like, that consistency. I try and post every day, Monday to Friday, and you know, I've done that nearly. I didn't do it Monday, so but most of the time I'm quite consistent. So
I think by being consistent but still like it's not a big deal if you missed one day. I think it's a good advice. Like,
no, don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. Let's talk about your work, because you've done so much, and I was just looking at all the fonts you've created. And how many fonts have you created throughout your career?
About 16 so far. But I've only been doing that for a couple of years, I think.
I think that's incredible. So my first question is, creating fonts, how did you decide to do that? Because it's almost like a separate thing, a separate career path. And did you see that as a good decision? And again, commercially, was that a good for you, or is it just something you feel passionate about, so you would do it anyway, even you don't sell any of them and they're all free?
So it all started because one of my followers, I think it was on Facebook, just kept badgering me, like, when you're going to release a font for your hand lettering. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And so I did my first one, which was all right. It was all caps, just roughly hand drawn. It sold a couple of copies of it. I thought, okay, I'll try another one. And I did a script one a joined up script one for the next one, which took me absolutely forever because I'd only just learned how to use the program and I didn't know all the shortcuts and stuff like that. So I remember having to, like, one of the things I find hard about font design is kerning, which is the space in between every pair of letters. And so I remember not knowing any shortcuts and having to individually space 1,300 pairs of letters. And I was just like, oh, I never want to do this again. But the font, when I finished it, sold really well. And I was like, oh, hang on, this can be an income stream. And actually, like, between my fonts and like Procreate, the iPad brushes I make, that is like my main income now. So I don't take on too much like freelance work at the moment because I quite like making my own products, whether it's fonts and other things like that. But it's a bit of a love-hate relationship between coming up with the idea, making the letters, and then you've got the technical stuff of, like I said, the kerning, the spacing, and the making it all work and fit together. So, but I didn't see it as something I was going to do. Like when I used to use fonts all the time in my work, I had a really basic knowledge of typography. So it wasn't until I started Calligraphy that I learned about descenders and ascenders and the X height and all the little details that make up, how you draw an S, and the S isn't all symmetrical, and the fact that the middle part of the E doesn't push out as far as the other bits. It's all those technical things that I learnt through calligraphy and then doing type design. I would make a lot of mistakes and I realised, why doesn't that look right? And then next time I do it, I go, oh, okay, I see that. So it was something that, like, I took an interest in, and I was like, oh, okay, this is something I can actually be part of my.
So you learned it
business.
all yourself. So were you? Really...
Yeah. So that was another thing. It was either through a course, online course.
Would recommend for the guys who are listening to it, and like, we want to start learning calligraphy right now. Where should they go?
So for actually, I've got the book here, which I learned from, which was really good because it's just literally, I got this one. This is the first book I got, and and it has like a range of styles in it. So, you know, just sort of like traditional ones, script ones, stuff like that. So it gives you like an overview. And then from that, I really liked a thing called Copper Plate Script, which was with like a nib and you know, dip it in the ink and you'd write a letter, dip it in the ink, write a letter. So you have to have quite a lot of patience. But I went on to that and did a book on mastering copper plate calligraphy and like spent, you know, months and months on that. And then from that, I just sort of started to like copy certain fonts. So I'd have like a, you know, sort of the structure of letters. So I could do hand lettering, which is more drawing letters rather than writing letters.
So the guys are actually asking which book was the one after Calligraphy for Dummies about the copper plate calligraphy was the book.
Okay, that one's called Mastering Copper Plate Calligraphy by Eleanor Winters. So it's quite an old book now, but it's really good.
Thank you.
And yeah, other than that, there's like I use places like Skillshare.com quite a lot. They've got a lot of intro ones into calligraphy there, and I know there's some people like Modern Calligraphy, which is a bit looser. I think there's some on the sort of more traditional calligraphy, which is what I focused on.
Brilliant.
So yes.
Oh, great! So, you had like an amazing journey that kind of led you to different paths. This is brilliant. Talking about your fonts, I noticed they have very interesting names. So, Adrenaline Brush, Moneypenny, Enjoy the Ride, Sticky Lollipop. Can you tell a bit more where these names are coming from? Is it like a secret copyright in yourself that you just feel like this is your way to experiment?
I think one of the hardest things is there's two hard things about once you've made the font. There's one is coming up with a name, and the second one is coming up with previews of how it can be used. Because like I don't do much graphic design anymore, so I don't use fonts because I'm always either drawing stuff by hand or using like sort of building my own. So so naming fonts is really tricky, and I think all designers, type designers, find it tricky because you want a really good name that sums up what the font's about, you know, gives it its own personality and can make or break how it sells as well. I think it just comes from I sort of sometimes I see a word and I like, oh, that might be good. I even come up sometimes with a name before I've even done the font. So, and it can orientate what it looks like. Yeah, it might be like a song on an album from someone, and I really like that name, and so I just choose that and I go with that. So
do you ever go back and think, okay, this was a bit too weird, or like?
Yeah, sometimes or it just does. You know, now looking in it, it's like, oh, it doesn't really work. And what's weird is I sometimes spend ages and ages on a font, and it might not sell much. And then I sell not as long on a font, and that sells better. And so there's a.
Do you know why? Have you ever like tried to analyze what makes the font successful?
I've tried, but I think it's mainly like my fonts. So I think there's two types of type designers. Mm-hmm. There's type designers who spend a few years on a font, a year, 2 years. You know, multiple weights, you know, super refined. And then there's more what like I'm at is where I go on sort of type trends. So what's maybe in at the moment, and because mine are like hand drawn as well and brush and stuff like that, it's very much what's in at the moment and what's working well and what people using in their designs. So I do that, and also just because I have a shop and I have to keep people coming back, I have to try and release a font quite regularly, like once a month. So I'm like constantly thinking up. That's one of the hardest things, and sometimes I just can't think of anything. You know, there's so many typefaces out there. It's really hard to come up with something completely new and original, and then also come up with a name that hasn't been chosen before, which is difficult.
Well, lots of challenges. You're based in the UK, and British typography has very long history from Baskerville and Castlemaine to Gill and Johnston. So do you feel like it affected the fact that you're based in the UK affected your style or gave you any more inspiration because you're surrounded by typography? Have you ever thought of that?
Not really, I suppose. I suppose there's I suppose there's a different, like, where the inspiration, like physical inspiration comes from. I suppose what I'm looking at in maybe antique stores or you know, vintage markets is going to look different than the American, say, market, where, you know, the type design is slightly different. So there's that, but a lot of my inspiration comes from sort of online resources because I only live in I live like an hour outside of London by train, and so I live in a little village or little town, and there's not a great deal here. So yeah, a lot of mine's online. You know, I look at, and that could be from anywhere. So yeah, so that's.
Okay. Brilliant. Let's take some questions from the guys. Guys, if you have any questions, please post them now so we can ask Ian before he goes. I think there were some questions about where to study typography in London if someone wants to do masters in typography. Do you have any advice on that?
I don't actually. I don't know about because I never went like I didn't because I never did a physical course on typography. I think there's a lot going on in London in terms of, I know there's lots of workshops in terms of calligraphy and lettering and stuff like that, and, you know, sign writing, and a lot of this stuff is interchangeable. You know, there's three main things. There's calligraphy, which is the you know, the writing letters. There's the hand lettering, which is drawing letters, and then the typography, which is sort of arranging letters, you know, using typefaces. So I think have a search around for courses in London. There's quite a lot going on. I don't know about actual ones at universities. I should look into that so I can help people find out.
But I agree with you. I think universities, in my personal opinion, are not the best place to go learn anything at all. It's not really good value for money and time spent there. And so definitely self-learning, short courses, any sort of very specific tailored programs is definitely a better option for any field, most of the fields in design, unless you're studying to be a doctor, then probably go to the university. But design things change too fast for universities to keep up with that as well. Okay, I don't think either guys are too shy to ask. Actually, we get some questions. How much time do you spend on one Instagram lettering post?
It ranges. It can range quite a lot. Depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing a video of me just doing some writing and I'm recording that, then I maybe do it a few times to rehearse, and then I film it and then I post it. Which, you know, the thing that takes the longest is like speeding it up so it's under a minute long, because normally takes me longer than that. So between, like, if it's a written one, it's about half an hour. If it's like an actual sketch, it depends how complicated. If it's quite a few words, then I spent a whole day on one post the other day. Whereas sometimes I can spend, like, I try not to spend like too long on it, but maybe an hour, I suppose, from start to finish is roughly what I spend on a post. So
that's a lot of dedication to know that you need at least 1 hour to put something on Instagram.
Yeah, but then sometimes I get to like, because I normally post about 3 o'clock, and I normally get to like 5 to 3 and I think, well, I haven't got anything ready yet. So sometimes I can come up with something quite quickly, or sometimes it takes me a lot longer, or I don't do it at all and I get to the end of the day and I find if you can do it in the morning, it always helps, because then it's sort of like you've got the post out there, and then you can focus on your work and not have to worry about trying to get it crammed in at the end of the day. And sometimes I just ideas of posting every day is quite hard. So I think it's something, you know, if you can give yourself a project where you've got, like, you know, maybe it's different countries or words or something like that, because I just like randomly come up with something, and and sometimes I'm like knocking on my head going, come on, think of an idea, you know, you need to post something. So yeah, it's tricky, but yeah, it just depends how much time you've got to hand. Mine ranges, depends how busy my day is, really. So.
Great. We have a couple more questions. I'll pick the best ones because we are running out of time. What software do you use for your typeface work?
So for my typeface work, I use solely one called Glyphs app, and it's only Mac only, unfortunately. I find it really easy to use. I use that alongside Illustrator as well sometimes. But if you're on a PC, then I think FontLab do a range of different type design programs, ranging from like about I think $50 up to about $400, $600. So it's what's good about Glyphs app is there's a 30-day trial. You can get a mini version, which is only $40 maybe. So you can try it out, and that's what I did. I tried it out for a couple of fonts until it paid for itself. And then I increased to the sort of, I think it's like $200, $300 version where it gives you more options and you can have extended characters and multiple weights and stuff like that. So yeah, it's worth checking out. And I think I did a video actually a couple of months ago where I talk about 7 ways you can start doing type design. So have a look at my YouTube channel, and there's a range of things that you can try out from free to quite cheap to really expensive.
I love your YouTube channel. You share a lot of useful stuff. So guys, definitely follow Ian on YouTube. You'll learn a lot from him. One more question that is very interesting. So about, do you think the future generation will be able to read or write cursive? Do you even practice handwriting in school anymore? I think that whole question of the handwriting in the future is very interesting because people do type now. What do you think is the future of type calligraphy in general?
I just want to point out one thing, first of all, is that my handwriting is still terrible. Calligraphy hasn't helped my handwriting because, like, I did one letter at a time, whereas with handwriting, you're doing sentences over and over again and getting into it. So my handwriting is terrible. If anyone saw my handwriting, they go, why do you get paid for this stuff? But I think, you know, look at, because I've got 2 children and they're at school, and I find the cursive alphabet they use in schools a bit weird. You know, it just it's not something I use like now, and I think that, you know, the digital stuff coming in, there is less use for, you know, general handwriting, because I don't often use it other than doing a shopping list for you know, my groceries. So I think it's still important to have it. It's just how, you know, when you're doing something that's not really, you know, because a lot of stuff I do is type on the computer and stuff like that. So it's like, you need to have a view of why you're doing something. So I think handwriting is something that still should be done in schools, but I think it should be given a certain purpose. And calligraphy for me is really, you know, I do it and I find it's relaxing. When I was doing it on learning, it was just like, you know, I was just sitting with my paper and I'd just go through, and it was just like people do when they're sewing or when they're painting and stuff like that. It's just to sort of, you know, can switch off a bit, and it's relaxing. So I think there'll always be people, you know, whether they're doing woodwork and stuff like that, it's something about not using the computer that really, you know, and doing a craft and, you know, making something with your hands. You know, you get a better response from like the thing I love doing is writing on someone's birthday card, because they like, I don't want to throw the envelope away, or I don't want to throw the card away.
Your friends must be the luckiest. They get all these beautifully calligraphed birthday cards. Oh, that's brilliant.
And it's something that, you know, if it's printed, you wouldn't have that same response. So I think there's always going to be a place for something that's handmade. And, you know, calligraphy is one of those things that's, you know, seeing someone wield a pen, you know, a traditional pen, is just beautiful, and just the flowing letters and how the ink, you know, it goes on the paper. So I think there'll always be it. Handwriting is just something that's, I think it needs to be there, but obviously it's not going to be used as much in the real world, you know, more than a keyboard and stuff like that. So hope that answers it.
The answers, I have the last section of our interview, which is fire questions. So be prepared to answer fast. Don't think too much. And hopefully the questions are not too difficult. So Earl Grey or English breakfast? Tea?
Oh, sorry, what was that? My thing cut out.
Tea. We're talking about tea. Earl Grey or English breakfast?
English breakfast.
Brilliant. Chalk or brush?
Brush, probably.
Gill or Helvetica?
Probably Gill, for it's more interesting.
Last movie you watched and liked?
It's quite a random one with what's his name? The Harry Potter star. And it's called Swiss Army Man. It's really one of those sort of slightly weird ones, but yeah, it was different. It was the idea of it was quite weird. So, and before that, it was probably The Big Sick.
Oh yeah, that
that sort of comedy romance one. So yeah.
What?
Sorry, turn off.
City or countryside?
Countryside. That's probably why I live in the countryside now.
Favorite letter in the alphabet that you enjoy drawing the most?
I really enjoy the letter S, which is probably one of the hardest ones to draw. But I think because I've spent so long trying to do it, it's now something I really enjoy doing now. And I think it's the only letter that has absolutely tons of curves to it, and it can be done in so many different ways as well. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
What do you hate about your job?
What do I hate? Doing my taxes.
Makes sense. If you could have a design-related superpower, what would it be?
Never running out of ideas. I'd be like Idea Man, where brilliant idea after brilliant idea would just be awesome.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. Are you a morning or a night person?
I'm a night person, which is really bad because my brain comes alive between 10 and 12. But the problem is, I've got 2 young kids that sometimes up in the night, and I've got to get up early, me and wife get the family ready, and it's just and then I'm knackered. So, yes, I'm a night person, but then I'm not a morning person after I've gone to bed late at night. Great.
Digital or physical? Even though I know that I know the answer.
I think overall, even though I use the iPad all the time, it's still, physical analog is still, there's still something real and raw about that I really enjoy.
Brilliant. Last question. What's your guilty pleasure? What do you waste your time on?
What do I waste my time on?
Yeah.
It's probably YouTube videos, I think. I spend, what do I waste my time on? Eating food.
Eating food. It's not really a waste. I think that's quite a useful thing to do.
Drinking coffee, when I'm not in, I'm always going out the office, back into the kitchen, and coffee or food is just constantly taking up my time.
Brilliant. So, let's finish. Thank you so much for all your answers. I think that was such an insightful interview, and lots of guys said lots of great things about you and posted nice comments about your work and how inspiring you are. So that's really great. But I want to ask you one kind of last thing to advise the guys who are watching us, who obviously are fans of your work, and they obviously admire your passion for it. So how do you keep this passion up? Do you have any sort of secret? How do you not get bored of your craft?
I think to not get bored, you have to just keep experimenting. I just find I have to, trying out new pens, trying out new techniques, trying out new. I think technology just keeps changing, and so there's always new apps to try. There's there's like the iPad, there's the Surface, there's things like that. So I think it's just to vary what you do within the area of specialty you do, and just keep trying new things cheap. Make sure you give yourself a break as well. I try not to work for the weekends for 2 reasons. One, so I can spend time with my children and my family and friends, and 2, even something you love can become all-consuming and hard work if you don't give yourself a break from it, because it will just, you end up hating it, I think, if you spend too much time in it. So you need to give yourself a break and just do something that's completely not what you normally do. It's a weird way. It's a weird feeling when your job, when your hobby, which is what this started out with, becomes your job. It turns into a weird thing because you're like earning money from the thing you're passionate about, and so for some people that may change how they feel about it. But for me, it's just I'm very blessed that there's a lot of people complaining about their jobs. They hate going in. They hate Monday mornings. And I really love coming to work because I get to draw letters all day. So.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ian, so much. Thank you, guys,
You're welcome.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Ian on all social media, especially YouTube and Instagram. Love following your work. Guys, follow us at Future London Academy if you want to hear more interviews with creative people like Ian. And thanks a lot, everyone. See you next time.
See you later.